Halo, the name given to a Forerunner construct of unparalleled beauty, technological sophistication, and destructive capability. While the Halos are mythical constructs that stand out with the characteristic grandeur and fatal beauty, it is no secret that the ring's innermost workings and the vast majority of its surface is unknown to us completely. Collating information from first-hand accounts, explored regions, known functionality, surveys and classified information from across every aspect of known data repositories, I've been able to assemble the single most detailed analysis and breakdown of a Halo ring found anywhere in the galaxy. In this video, and arguably what I may break down to be independent series of videos as well, we will look at Halo in exquisite detail and break down the ring to its absolute foundations, analysing every layer, component, structure, facility, and feature of the ring world as we go. So allow me to welcome you to this most detailed breakdown of a Halo. Now let's get started. First, some brief history of the previous array, and the events which led to this particular generation of Halo. The first Halos were constructed by the master builder Faber, the leader of the builder caste of the Forerunners in the years following the emergence of the Flood within the Milky Way galaxy. The Forerunners, being the holders of the mantle of responsibility, and thus the stewards and protectors of all life in the galaxy, had to make some difficult choices if they intended to continue to protect the galaxy. Thousands of different measures were proposed, tested, and abandoned in an effort to combat the parasite. The more extreme members of the Builder caste claimed that more extreme measures should be used to protect the galaxy against a possible Flood resurgence, and proposed building the Halo array. The initial iterations of the weapon system that would eventually become Halo did not share the circular shape of the final installations, and was more of a proof of concept. Although they faced strong opposition from the other Prometheans led by the Didact, the builders eventually won the approval of the Ecumene Council and commenced work on the array. Once the true potential destructive power of the rings were realized, the librarian went to the council and demanded the Halos be used as biological preserves as a conservation measure alongside a plan to repopulate the galaxy should the array ever be activated. The council approved her request at her insistence of the array being against the mantle of responsibility, and ordered that the Halo installations be constructed to have a range of natural environments for the life workers to preserve their biological specimens in. The builders also agreed, seeing the inclusion of biological preserves as an effective means of competing with the Didact's shield worlds, which incorporated similar measures. 12 Halos, each 30,000 kilometers in diameter, were originally commissioned by Master Builder Faber and constructed by the Guild of Bornstella's father at the Greater Ark. Only one of these original rings ultimately survived to be used in the Forerunners' final plan. This ring was designated Installation 07, otherwise known as Zeta Halo. In the later stages of the construction of the first Halos, Master Builder, named Maker of Moons, was assigned to improve upon their designs. The first test deployments had proven the original rings to be unstable and too large to be practically deployed, generating enormous particle reconciliation debt when moved through slipspace. The original arc also had several flaws, including the inability to construct smaller installations. As a consequence, the master builder, informed by Maker's analysis, commissioned a new arc and a series of new, more efficient rings several millennia after the first halos were made. The builders promoted this as a means to save even more species while being able to create more halos. The new arc, known as the Lesser Arc, or Installation 00, and its 6 new halos were constructed, and these are the particular iteration of the halos we will be looking at in this video. So let's start where every halo ring starts. A halo begins its life at its parent arc. In the newer neoteric array's case, this is the Lesser Arc, otherwise known as Installation 00. This massive megastructure serves many purposes, but one of the more prominent roles is in the creation of halos. At the center of the arc are the massive forges responsible for the actual creation and fabrication of a halo. However, the raw materials still have to come from somewhere. Floating at the core of the arc, held in place by stabilizing gravitational fields, is a planetoid. Having once been located within the Milky Way galaxy, this mineral-rich terrestrial body was moved via slipspace to its current location. Massive Forerunner Sentinels, known as Retriever Sentinels, then set upon the task of mining the planetoid. It is understood that the planetoid currently observed at the center of the arc is simply the most recent planetoid, and that in fact, many had been brought to the arc previously and mined to complete exhaustion. The Retriever Sentinels, being constructs controlled and utilized by the minor rate of the Forerunner Ecumene, were automated machines measuring a little under 478 meters in length. They would use their extraordinarily powerful and prehensile gravitic force fields to extract raw materials from the surface of the planetoid with ease. There are likely tens of thousands of these Retriever Sentinels present on the arc, as it has been suggested that the arc is capable of producing an entire halo from scratch in 3 months, which is incredible given that the halos encountered in modern times are 10,000 kilometers in diameter, and at this size being only marginally smaller than the diameter of Earth, which itself is 12,756 kilometers. While the original 12 halos had a diameter of 30,000 kilometers, concerns about their structural stability and transport led to a second series of rings being reduced in size. The surface of each ring is 318 kilometers wide, with a depth of 22.3 kilometers to 47 kilometers, and the oval circumference of the ring is 31,415 kilometers, and the interior surface area is 9,985,200 kilometers squared, roughly the size of Canada. The main structure of the ring is constructed of a super-dense foundational material with elaborate scaffolding and cantilever structures laid over it to support the artificial land masses and the myriad of tunnel networks and caverns that riddle the installation's internal structure. Many of these tunnels are transit conduits meant for the use by the ring's sentinels, though some of them can be traversed by humanoid beings. The material is harvested from the planetoid in the hub of the Ark and processed by Forerunner Sentinels, changing their mechanical and material properties to suit the requirements of the main foundational material of such a megastructure. Although it is still unknown exactly what processes are performed to this raw material, one can infer, given the Forerunners' extremely sophisticated and advanced technological achievements, such as exquisite control over gravity in the form of artificial gravity, this can be employed for materials creation. The periodic table is somewhat universal, so you'd expect the material's properties not to vary much, until you consider the influence gravity has on density. As with neutron stars, the material at their core is so dense that a single teaspoon of the material would weigh around 10 million tons. The Forerunners would not need to achieve anything close to this density, but manufacturing any material in a higher gravity environment would have a noticeable effect on the density and thus material properties of the artificially produced material. This increased gravity field would have the effect of making each individual atom of the molten metal tens, hundreds, or even thousands of times as quote-unquote heavy as they normally are. This would mean that the atoms would be crushed closer and closer together. As long as this doesn't bridge the gap between ultra-compressed and fusion, the result after cooling is a material that is hyperdense. Hydrogen, when compressed by gravity enough, becomes metallic in nature. With enough quote-unquote pressure, you can turn carbon spontaneously into diamonds. Diamonds are rated at 10 on the Mohs hardness scale, actually the defining mineral of the Mohs hardness scale, but they are still basically just perfectly ordered and highly pressured carbon matrices. In theory, the Forerunners could do the same with practically any other material on the periodic table. If carbon can be ordered and pressured to render it the very definition of hardness in our current understanding of materials' properties, there is nothing to say other elements wouldn't go through a similar process. The Forerunners could hypothetically do the same thing with other materials, resulting in ultra-dense materials. But this isn't where the impressive technological innovations end for the construction process. Halos also possess hard light reinforcement to stabilize and protect them against tidal and gravitational forces from other objects. In our current understanding of hard light, photons, individual particles of light, are emitted and then slowed in a dense cloud of opposing particles. This causes the photon speed to be 100,000 times slower than in a vacuum. At this critical stage, and at least given our current technology, temperatures approaching absolute zero, the photons lose energy and gain mass, likely due to the relationship between mass and energy as defined in Einstein's famous E=mc² equation. The fact that photons, normally massless particles, suddenly gain mass causes them to begin to react to one another and begin to form particle bonds with other photons. In high enough concentrations, this begins to manifest as a solid material made of low energy, high mass photons. This is useful in that the process enables energy to be converted into light and then converted into matter, which, as long as a power supply is maintained, provides a near infinite supply of matter, limited only by the system's efficiency and photon density. The ultra-dense foundational materials of the halo are engineered in such a way to facilitate an exotic mechanism known to the Forerunners as hard light bonding. This is basically where energy channels are created in, around, and throughout the foundational material of the halo, allowing hard light to flow and take form, providing a hard light reinforcement to the structure. Due to the possibility of power loss, hard light is never relied upon for the most important structural systems, as a loss of power could result in catastrophic failure of the structural integrity of the system. So conventional ultra-dense matter is the desired foundational structure. The halos make use of hard light in their firing mechanisms, in addition to using hard light as a protective structural reinforcement to stabilize and protect the rings against tidal and gravitational forces from other objects. Although many Forerunner structures project a hard light decorative shell over the structural support elements of the building, almost all buildings seen on the Halo installation or the Ark lack this covering. The Forerunners did not implement such decoration on the Halo structures, as they were meant to be purely functional, and it could even be argued at the point of their creation, raw materials to create hard light projectors became more and more uncommon, rendering normal matter and material to be more common and thus more immediately useful to the Forerunners during the construction of the array. One of the most extraordinary systems possessed by the Halos, at least the 12 original rings, is their ability to lock entire sections of the ring or, if necessary, the entirety of it into a reflective slipspace stasis. This suspends the sections in time and renders them invulnerable to damage from the outside, but consumes an enormous amount of energy. It is assumed that the neoteric array either doesn't have such a system, or that it requires the combined actions of several individuals to put in place, because otherwise 343 Guilty Spark would have implemented such a system on Installation 04 upon realizing Spartan 117 was going to succeed in detonating the Pillar of Autumn's fusion drives. Doing so would have protected the ring from the destructive effects of the explosion, or literally halted them altogether, due to being encased in a stasis field that exists outside of time and space. Since this did not take place, it is assumed the neoteric array lack this feature, or it requires more than just the monitor to activate it. The Halos are capable of repairing themselves to some degree, replacing damaged plates of foundational material and restoring biological sections. Some of the 30,000 kilometer diameter halos could be reduced to a smaller size by shedding large portions of the foundation. In order to prevent the ring from falling apart during this process, it could generate a hard light hub with spokes which hold onto each of the foundational plates. However, the self-reduction process was far from perfect and made the original halo prone to instability and collapse. The newer halos are capable of safely ejecting segments as well due to their modular and reconfigurable configuration, as long as the process is overseen by a capable enough intelligence, such as a monitor. Additionally, small, specifically defined parts of the halo's terrain, along with the underlying foundational layers, can be jettisoned into space as a precautionary measure against flood outbreaks. In time, the ecosystems of these ejected sections can be restored by the Halo's automated systems. The Halo rings achieve their gravity through artificial gravity generators. Despite their shape, the ring does not need to spin to create gravitational pull, although they do spin for other reasons unrelated to gravity generation. Due to this, the various refugia present on the installation's surface may have different surface gravity, terrain, lighting, and atmospheric conditions. When the UNSC Pillar of Autumn was detonated, it blasted a large mass from Installation 04, no longer a full loop. The centripetal force applied in much greater strength on the newly formed weak point, causing the ring to rip apart. Each installation in the final Halo array orbits a large, dense planet, most commonly a gas giant, which serves as a gravitational anchor. For example, Installation 04 and Installation 05 orbited Threshold and Substance respectively, which are both large gas giants, while Installation 03 is anchored to a large rocky planet. While the terrain of a halo may appear to be naturally formed at first glance, it is actually artificially constructed. Strato-sentinels extract raw material from the source and process them in transit and deposit building materials at the installation. An intricate layer of metallic panels is laid down several meters below the surface of the terrain, upon which rock, soil, and eventually vegetation is added. After the Master Chief activates Halo at the close of Halo 3, he makes his way to Johnson's Warthog. From there, he begins his chaotic journey to the Ford Unto Dawn. The Halo is unfinished. The topography of the Halo, its rolling hills, trees, cliffs, and bodies of water have not yet been constructed. Instead, the bare bones foundations of the Halo is visible. These massive plates are the template for the landscape, which will be laid over the top of it. In order for these massive landscape foundation plates to serve their function, they are held in place by superstructure connections and interim anti-gravity fields, as the actual landscape of the rings was not an original feature of their design, but rather an innovative addition insisted upon by the librarian. The anti-grav fields and sparse superstructural connections allowed the honeycomb structure of the Halo to support the additional landscape without adversely affecting core functionality of the ring's superstructure. 4 huge terraforming factories then move across the face of the installation to skin it with land masses and bodies of water. These factories also hold in the ring's nitrogen-oxygen atmosphere, which is then leaked out onto the surface, eventually pouring through the superstructure and being tugged in place by centripetal force, massive walls lining both sides of the ring world to prevent the atmosphere from leaking out into space, and the ring's own artificial gravity. The result? Towering mountain ranges, enormous canyons, and vast swathes of desert terrain occupy their interiors, comprised of a rich intermingling of ecosystems, and while appearing natural in their formation, they are anything but, often only being a skin no more than a few meters in depth. Some features, such as landslides, are the result of time and have been formed quote-unquote naturally by the ring's inclement weather. Although first and foremost designed as weapons of mass destruction, the Halos are also designed as habitats for transplanted life forms, including but not limited to humans. After Master Builder Faber's plans were co-opted by the librarian, the Halos were given terrestrial surfaces to support catalogued specimens. The Master Builder intended to allow these specimens to be infected by the flood forms contained on the rings, and then subsequently terminated in order to test the Halo's effectiveness. The Halo's installations support a wide range of environments, habitats, ecosystems, and climates. Installation 04 and Installation 05 supported warm, temperate forests that were both deciduous and coniferous, swamps, and cold, snow-covered tundra environments. The frigid conditions of the quarantine zone, or the lake near the temple of Installation 05, were artificially created. There are also numerous indigenous life forms that live on the Halos. These were brought to the installations as part of the Lifeworkers Conservation Project. The structures seen on the surface of the installation are built as part of the underlying structure, with the terrain then printed on the top of them, creating the appearance of structures built into the surrounding landscape, when the inverse is in fact true. The interesting thing about the weather systems of the Halo is that while they were initially implemented as an artificial construct, once in place and due in part to the Halo's immense scale, they still follow the basic laws of meteorology. The atmosphere begins to react to the ring's size, geography, topology, temperature gradients, and rotation along with its own mass, and inevitably start to react to these variables, leading into a positive feedback loop, increasing in its own instance of chaos theory, and setting into a naturally governed cycle that then outwardly appears completely natural, even to the analysis of smart AIs such as Cortana. And this is fundamentally the case. The atmosphere, while created alongside the landscape, still follow the the basic laws of physics. Each halo has several assets that are uniform to all installations. Each contains a control room located somewhere upon its inner surface. The control room houses the installation's mainframe, known as the core, from which all of the halo systems can be operated. The halo's main weapon can be activated by inserting the activation index into the core. On the other hand, the core may also be used to disable the main weapon. A control room is a crucial facility featured on many Forerunner installations, most prominently those of the Halo array. The control room of a Halo contains the installation's core data center, and is used to manage the entirety of Halo systems, including its primary weapon, which can be activated by inserting the activation index. The core is the most indispensable part of a Halo. It directs and controls every other aspect of the ring world, and is the location that the rings may be activated. Containment protocol dictates that the index must be physically brought into contact with the core by a reclaimer. According to 343 Guilty Spark, he was not allowed to perform this action, although not that he couldn't, and the Jiralhane chieftain Tartarus was seemingly unable to do so. Once the index has been reunified with the core, the installation's firing sequence begins. However, if the activation index is forcefully removed before this sequence ends, all 7 Halo rings go into standby mode, ready to be activated and fired remotely from the Ark. Other functions include the management of the installation safety protocols, and control over the Halo's gravity anchors, enabling the ejection of selected environmental sections into space. The Halo's control rooms are typically located within a pyramidal temple-like structure. Control rooms are featured on other installations as well. Shield worlds, for example, possess dedicated control centers for Forerunner fleets or weapons they may contain. Each Halo also possesses a library, known to the Covenant as the Repository of Fate. This is the name given to the structure present on the installations of the Halo array. The libraries are vast archive complexes and research facilities housing the collated genetic information of numerous sentient species indexed by the life workers during the conservation measure, an effort to reseed life in the galaxy following the activation of the Halo array. The structure also houses the activation index, the object used to activate the Halo ring, and simultaneously initiate the repopulation process of the species archived in the library. Library facilities are not exclusive to the Halos and are found on several other installations as well. Located at the heart of the library is a multi-tiered hall known as the Index Chamber. It is in the center of this chamber where you can find the activation index, suspended in a stasis field. In accordance with proper flood containment procedures, the reclaimer tasked with activating the installation must first deactivate an energy field surrounding the index by accessing a large elevator on the library's uppermost floor. The elevator then descends from the highest level of the library to the index's position, allowing the reclaimer to retrieve it from its container. Also, according to procedure, the reclaimer's passage through the library is assisted by the installation's monitor, whose duties also include opening the facility's various security doors. The interior of the library consists of multiple gigantic hallways of geometric design and interconnected to one another, all surrounding the index chamber and lined with stasis modules. Massive security doors are located between each section. Other floors of the structure are accessed via large circular elevator platforms, and like most structures of the Halo rings, a library also houses a network of ducts and shafts used by Sentinels or the installation's monitor to access other areas. During the flood outbreaks on Installation 04 and Installation 05, the Flood were able to utilize these tunnels to move across the structure. Due to its critical importance, the library is the first target of the Flood parasite during an outbreak. As a security measure against the Flood, most libraries are separated from the rest of the installation by various types of obstacles such as moats, chasms, or massive walls. Access to the library itself usually occurs via each installation's internal teleportation grid. On Installation 05, 2401 Penident Tangent was unable to assist the individuals wishing to retrieve the index in this manner. As a result, a longer, less direct route had to be taken. An anti-gravity gondola spanning a large chasm separating the installation's quarantine zone from the library. The quarantine zone was encircled by the Sentinel Wall, a massive barrier which was protected by a containment shield and filled with numerous aggressor sentinels and enforcers. Halo installations also possess cartographer facilities, which contain the complete real-time record and schematic of the installation, including its inner passages and networks, to be used as a navigational reference for traversing the installation. The cartographer is a dedicated facility designed to contain and provide access to the Silent Cartographer, a program featuring the complete real-time record and schematics of the Halo. A central component of any installation of Forerunner construction, it is found on nearly all of their megastructures, such as the Halo Array and the Shield Worlds. Some installations contain a number of discrete cartographer facilities. When activated, the cartographer provides a real-time holographic projection map, which can be used to navigate the massive expanse that is the installation, along with other relevant information such as pinpointing every room or location within the vast structures. The cartographer facilities on the various Forerunner installations differ in layout and design, though their primary map rooms on the Halo installations are buried within large structures housing a network of compartments and rooms. Due to their significance, the cartographers are protected by multiple security measures. An artificial intelligence is able to interface with the Silent Cartographer and, for example, set navigational points on the holographic projection. A Forerunner's armor's personal ancilla was able to link with the cartographer and provide packets of information on the installation's past activities directly to the wearer's brain. Flood containment and research facilities are also standard, used by the installation's monitor to conduct research on and observe the surviving flood specimens. These are heavily protected by sentinels to prevent an outbreak. There are various types and sizes of flood research facilities. In accordance with the safety protocols of the conservation measure, these research centres were almost invariably built in remote locales. Containment protocols were another integral part of the security in flood research facilities. Many flood research facilities were built on the Halo installations, including the library structures, the cold storage facility below Installation 05's surface, the lockout facility suspended in a mountainside. One facility was built in a gas mine in Threshold's atmosphere, and Installation 00 is known to possess at least one flood research facility. Installation 07, otherwise known as Zeta Halo, was home to various flood research centres. These facilities were originally operated by the Master Builder Faber's forces and the life workers under their charge, until the Primordial and Mendicant Bias took control of operations on the Halo. To the human population transplanted on the ring, these facilities were known as the Palace of Pain, due to the brutal experiments committed within. Some facilities have their own monitors and unique types of sentinels, such as Line Installations 1 to 4, a sprawling underground complex on an unidentified moon. Installation 05's cold storage facility also has its own type of caretaker AI, suspended in the ceiling. It can be assumed that other research facilities are still scattered throughout the galaxy, alone or on the interior of other Halo rings. Unfortunately, the research facilities were unable to find a solution other than finding that the flood was susceptible to starvation. Thus, despite the best intentions, the Forerunners had to fire the Halo Array in order to eradicate the flood threat. Now, these facilities have either been destroyed or are uninhabited by sentient life. Installation 05 experienced a breach of its flood research facilities around 97,000 years before the Battle of Installation 05 in 2552, releasing the flood in certain areas on the ring. Facilities on the Halo array contain advanced teleportation grids allowing instantaneous transport of a monitor or reclaimer to any place on the installation. Under normal circumstances, these grids cannot be accessed by the Flood, though the Gravemind was able to use that of Installation 05 by controlling 2401 Penitent Tangent. While the teleportation system on Onyx was made up of a network of translocation platforms, the teleportation grids on the Halo installations allow translocation from any point on the ring without the need for a teleporter. Teleportation through a grid is typically accompanied by rings of golden light that surround the individual being teleported. A teleportation grid requires massive amounts of energy to operate. The translocation grids on the Halo installations are supported by an array of telemetry clusters, spire-like structures equipped with synchronization conduits which ensure the grid's operation at all times. Teleportation grids extend some distance away from the installation they are based on, as evidenced by the Gravemind being able to use Installation 05's grid to translocate John 117 into High Charity, which was holding position near the installation. Translocation through a teleportation grid is not completely instantaneous. A sense of immense velocity could be felt when travelling through Installation 04's grid. Although the system merely transports its user through slipspace as opposed to disassembling and then rebuilding them in another location, the uncertainty errors involved are known to cause sensations of being put back together again from a million pieces when recovering from teleportation. In addition, the process typically causes feelings of nausea and disorientation on humans. Kurt051 described the feeling as if his guts had been untwisted and then dumped back into his body inside out. For Sentinels, the installation is riddled with tunnels and cave networks for access and transportation. The Halo installations are also equipped with drive engines spaced along their rim. In the event of an emergency, a Halo can maneuver itself to avoid damage from a collision or weaponry. While ideally moved through fixed portals, the rings are able to perform slipspace jumps under their own power. In the case of at least the original 12 rings, a failsafe measure implemented in the event of a capture by hostile forces would transition the Halo into slipspace and place it on a collision course with a planet or other celestial body, ensuring the weapon's destruction rather than allowing it to fall into the wrong hands. At the moment of Installation 04's destruction, at least one major fragment of the ring world moved into slipspace, likely as part of a similar failsafe. In addition to the translocation or teleportation grid, Halos often make use of gondolas, which are anti-gravity platforms used to ferry individuals or groups over long distances that would otherwise be difficult to traverse without. Two types of gondolas were encountered on Installation 05, the first over the lake near the temple, or otherwise known as temple gondolas, and the second near the library, otherwise known as library gondolas. The smaller temple gondolas and underwater elevators are the only way to reach the Forerunner Temple, where the Prophet of Regret had initially set up his base of operations during the Battle of Installation 05. These gondolas are supported by anti-gravity tethers below and above. The larger library gondolas and the teleportation grid are the only way to reach Installation 05's library. There is also record of there being gondolas on Installation 07, so it is reasonable to assume that they feature on most, if not all, of the Halos. As previously mentioned when we spoke about the Halos facilities, there are redundant facilities meant to be brought online if the primaries fail. It is likely that the Installation 04's primary facilities were all online during Master Chief's time on the ring, so gondolas may only feature on secondary or redundant facilities, or Chief simply accessed the key facilities at locations that did not require gondolas, and that there were some in place but were otherwise out of sight. Elevators are commonplace throughout various foreign installations. The elevator and their control panels have a tendency to be geometric like most other Forerunner designs. Forerunner lifts have several different methods of propulsion. How exactly they work is not always clear. Most lifts move without apparent propulsion systems at all. Some have beams of energy supporting them, such as the lifts on the Ark. In the case of the underwater elevators on Delta Halo, it would appear to be a hybrid system. A very obvious and mechanical whir can be heard when the lift is ascending or descending in the lift shaft, but upon entering the water, the attachment couplings at each upper corner of the elevator articulate and evidently produce some source of thrust, although the thrust does not disturb the water in any noticeable way, nor generate any discernible noise. Vacuum energy is the underlying background energy that exists in space throughout the entire universe. One contributing factor to the vacuum energy may be the formation of virtual particles, particle pairs throughout the universe that blink into existence and then annihilate in a time span too short to observe. Their behavior is codified in Heisenberg's energy-time uncertainty principle. The effects of vacuum energy are thought to influence the behavior of the universe on cosmological scales. In the early 21st century, humanity contemplated the theoretical possibility of using vacuum energy to create free energy machines. It was argued that due to the broken symmetry in quantum electrodynamics, free energy does not violate the conservation of energy, since the laws of thermodynamics only apply to equilibrium systems. In general Forerunner application, vacuum energy originates from the beginnings of an infinite number of alternate realities. When harnessed for the power supply, these fledgling universes are drained of their energy in their infancy, resulting in their premature deaths. Virtually all Forerunner technology utilized practically infinite available vacuum energy as a power source, making possible their myriad of technological marvels. It is important to understand at this stage that the halo has to generate immense levels of energy and amplify it to unprecedented levels in order to achieve the desired effect. To do this, the halo has power plants located within it that generate energy using a highly advanced quantum vacuum energy generation technique. This energy is then vectored through energy relay conduits throughout its superstructure to channel the immense amounts of energy required to various facilities around the ring. This is then fed into phase pulse generators and resonant constructive interference frequency tuning systems that can positively reinforce and amplify the energy. It is then tuned to the specific frequency of the neural networks of sufficiently sentient life and output to the array emitters located across the entirety of the halo's edges. These energy conduits throughout the ring not only serve the function of firing the ring, but also the day-to-day requirements of the ring, including artificial gravity generation and facility power supply. During the firing of an incomplete halo, the energy conduits and their associated systems began failing, being structurally unable to deal with the massive and amplifying energy levels required for firing. But in fully functioning rings, this immense energy is harnessed by the ring and its facilities seamlessly. The nature of vacuum energy, at least in the Forerunner's use of it, remains difficult to quantify. It is mused upon by the didact in this quote: "As the reflective orb rotates beneath my ship, I see the outstretched feather-like plumes of vacuum energy pylons, drawing in potential of an infinite of alternate realities, aborting untold numbers of nascent universes to supply Requiem's power. Strange that these cosmic deaths have never before struck me as cruel and futile. All of Forerunner technology has been made possible by drawing down vacuum energy. My own life, and all that I know, arises out of cosmic predation." As previously stated, vacuum energy is defined as being the underlying background energy that exists throughout space in the entire universe. Although, judging by the didact's quote, the way in which the Forerunners utilize this is quite different. It suggests that the Forerunners' particular form of vacuum energy actually harvests untold numbers of separate realities, basically capturing new universes as they are about to explode into their own Big Bangs, and commence a near timeless process of expansion, birth, death, and rebirth of life, and instead effectively aborts the infantile universe and harvests them for incredible energy levels that they contain. This immense energy is then siphoned throughout the energy conduits across the entirety of the ring, and it is surmised that the large circular glowing features on the outer surface of the rings are these immense vacuum energy generators. The 7 installations in the final halo array function via a form of lethal radiation designed to kill all sentient life in the installation's three-dimensional radius of 25,000 light-years. When fired in concert with the rest of the array, this sterilizing effect covers the entire galaxy. When activated, the halo rings release a burst of cross-phased supermassive neutrinos. The burst possesses a harmonic frequency which can be tuned to destroy the nervous systems of any macroscopic organism that possesses one, even one as rudimentary as a notochord, as shown in the aftermath of a low-powered test firing of a halo performed by Mendicant Bias in the system of Chatham-Hakor. Fine-tuning the pulse can also allow for selective extermination of lifeforms with varying degrees of neural complexity. The halo effect is able to target and eliminate most forms of neural structures, from biological nervous systems to esoteric neural physical constructs, although the effect does not extend to artificial intelligences. Simpler lifeforms that do not possess a neural system, such as microbes, fungi, algae, mosses, and traditional plants, are unaffected, while organisms aboard the 12 older rings were safe from the halo effect itself due to its directional nature. Any sentient being would still experience an uncomfortable sensation in the vicinity of the pulse. Any living creature on the newer 7 rings, however, would be killed and need to be reintroduced following the firing of the array. Like virtually all Forerunner technology, the halos are powered by vacuum energy. When the main weapon is fired, vacuum energy is siphoned from local space-time to near depletion. The pulse of the main weapon is amplified by a series of phase pulse generators and channeled towards the halo's center. A concentration of energy collects in the hub of the installation, which, when the weapon is fully charged, blasts outwards in all directions. The radiation is propelled at superluminal speeds and will eventually propagate at near infinite velocity. This was known to generate causal paradoxes when the rings first fired, with 2 of the halos reporting pre-echoes of the combined activation before the rings had even been fired. Once activated from Installation 00, all installations will cumulatively trigger one another as their radiation fields intersect, amplifying the effects of each individual halo. The energy discharge covers the array's effective range and cleanses it of all affected sentient life. Individual halos can also be fired independently from the rest of the array. This is known as a tactical pulse. In the event a halo's activation is cancelled, a burst of energy is fired from the control center into the hub, causing the energy collated there to violently implode and then dissipate harmlessly. The final halo array, comprising of the 6 smaller halos and the reduced Installation 07, were designed to fire in all directions, with a spherical radius of 25,000 light-years. Together, the rings were capable of killing all sentient life within 3 radii of the Milky Way's galactic center. The original 12 halos were designed to fire laterally, generating a cone-shaped field with a maximum effective range of hundreds of thousands of light-years. When fired from the greater arc to the Large Magellanic Cloud, the blast was wide enough to cover the entire 14,000 light-year wide satellite galaxy. The rings could also be fired on a lower power setting, cleansing specific planets or systems within a relatively small area of effect. As previously mentioned, a single halo ring has the ability to wipe out all life within 25,000 light-years in every direction. However, when fired in concert, the 7 rings that make up the current halo array are capable of wiping out all life within the galaxy. The nervous systems of all beings are targeted by the halos and destroyed, rendering them useless to the Flood. However, the halo effect does not disintegrate biomass, leaving the victim's body mostly intact. left untreated, life forms killed by the pulse will decay in great masses, which could lead to ecological devastation spread by a miasma of rotten biomatter. Therefore, life workers sprayed target biospheres with a solute that would cause any animal killed by the array to instantly decay into its component molecules, resulting in flash desiccation. Due to the foreigners' use of the solute, 21st century paleoarchaeological studies gave no indication of the mass extinction caused by the array's firing. However, in 2332, the Ross-Ziegler blip revealed a tiny aberration in Earth's fossil record. The Ross-Ziegler blip was a stratigraphic event on Earth and a number of other planets, named for the two geologists who discovered it in 2332, dating back approximately 100,000 years ago during the late Pleistocene, coinciding with the activation of the halo array by the foreigners that wiped the galaxy of sentient life. Since such a massive, simultaneous extinction event seemed logically impossible, especially with the unexplainable absence of any fossil evidence, the anomaly was eventually dismissed as evidence of spatial distortion until the discovery of the array by the United Nations Space Command in 2552. Given these new discoveries, the blip was re-explained to be the result of the sudden destruction of biomass and sentient life at the conclusion of the Foreigner Flood War. The only known ways to avoid the effects of the pulse are to seek shelter in a shield world or to escape outside the range of the array. However, the effects can be nullified by using a ring in an incomplete state. When Installation 08 was fired in an incomplete state, John 117 survived aboard the UNSC Ford unto dawn, and native animals on Installation 00 also survived the firing. Flood aboard High Charity also survived the firing, but Installation 00 Sentinels were able to contain those that survived within a containment shield around the ruined structure. Halo installations make use of composer technology to an unknown degree as part of their firing. Further information is required before I can make any suppositions on this point, other than the fact that the composers were originally designed as a means by which to extract the mental pattern, commonly known as an essence, of a biological being of sufficient neural complexity and converting it into data by broadcasting high-energy fields of entangled sympathies. The process, which was not fully understood even by its foreigner creators, utilized neural physics, a science mastered by the precursors, one of a select few foreign technologies to do so. But it stands to reason that if the composers operate on neural physics, and the halos are tuned to destroy the nervous systems of sufficiently neurally complex life, the two go hand in hand, even if the foreigners don't completely understand it themselves. On the Halo installations, containment protocol is normally enforced by monitors, but there have been cases of sentinels taking it upon themselves to enforce containment. There are different procedures about enforcing the protocol judging by the size of the outbreak. If the outbreak is minor, the monitor will deploy a number of aggressor sentinels and constructors to eliminate the flood present. In the event of a major outbreak, like that seen on Installation 05's quarantine zone, major sentinels and enforcer drones will be mass deployed to eradicate all flood and its vectors. Unburdened communication is crucial in the event of an outbreak. The protocols dictate that immediate reporting on the status of the outbreak be established among local forces. If containment is breached on a larger scale, then more drastic measures must be taken to ensure that the situation returns to stability, the final option being the use of a Halo installation. Protocol also includes the procedures involved in activating the Halo array. It requires a reclaimer to retrieve the index for activation, that the monitor store the index within its own data arrays for transport, and that only the reclaimer can use the index to activate the system because the monitor is not able to activate the Halo by itself. The leadership of a monitor is important but not always necessary. The Sentinels and Enforcers of Delta Halo continued to enforce containment even after their monitor 2401 Penitent Tangent was captured by the Gravemind, and despite this lack of monitor oversight, the Sentinels of Onyx abide by containment protocol by neutralizing local infection vectors. The UNSC Marines, Spartan 3s, and the Covenant forces on or near the planet. Containment protocols, however, cannot be activated or preceded if the Global Sentinel Defense Network is disabled. When Voridus disabled Installation 00's Sentinel Defense Network, the Sentinels were unable to perform their duties, including conducting containment protocol. The containment protocols can only be reenacted if the Global Defense Network is online. Each Halo ring has its own defences, though Sentinels from Installation 00 are always deployed at a newly constructed ring to finalise preparations to launch it. Aggressors were utilised as all-purpose workers and guards on Forerunner stations. Following the construction of the Halo array, they were reconfigured to be the first line of defence against flood outbreaks and other external intruders. The mechanical nature of the aggressors make them ideal combat units against the enemy that could convert conventional biological infantry into biomass. By deploying the aggressors en masse, the Forerunners could battle the parasite without contributing to its numbers. Controlled by their own basic AI functions, as well as their installation's monitor, aggressors patrol the installation's vast terrain and network tunnels tirelessly and attack as their protocol demands. Constructors are drones programmed to repair any damaged Forerunner structure they can find using low-tuned energy beams similar to Sentinel beams. These beams are fired from either the top half, the middle, or the bottom half of the constructor. The beams can also be used to open cryptums or lower the shields on pistons, allowing them to access the tunnel networks built within the Sentinel wall. Although weak, they can harm an organism if they come into contact with it. Constructors can also play the role of a security grid. When a constructor is attacked, a signal is automatically sent to Sentinel launchers to begin deploying aggressors. For this reason, they can form an excellent security perimeter. With no weapon systems, the constructors rely on aggressors when threatened. Enforcers are a specialised Sentinel variant equipped with energy shields and an array of powerful weapons. They serve as part of the Halo installation's defense against mass flood outbreaks and have been seen guarding key locations such as the entrances to the Sentinel Wall and the library on Installation 05. Enforcers are produced by hovering Sentinel production facilities. Enforcers have 3 energy shields. The larger 2 are split in half for their pulse beams to fire through, and the small upper shield to protect the eye of the Enforcer. However, the shields only protect the front of the machine. Enforcers are armed with pulse beams and missiles. They are also equipped with large claw-like arms which they are able to pick up and rip apart most vehicles. A retriever is capable of producing an artificial gravitic force that allows it to remove materials from a world's surface. Once in position above an acceptable place to harvest, the retriever deploys its blue gravitic beam towards the world's surface and begins hauling chunks of land in the beam into its underbelly. The mining process utilised by the retriever is noted to create a tornado-like effect as the ground is pulled into the Sentinel's hold. If deemed necessary, a retriever is capable of connecting and merging with another retriever and forming a single unit. Combined retrievers somewhat resemble an average retriever, though they seem to be more effective in combat and are significantly more manoeuvrable. With no apparent drawbacks, a combined retriever seems to take on the benefits of both retriever's speed and weaponry. When a retriever is threatened or attacked, these Sentinels may use their gravitic beam as a dangerous and highly destructive, though cumbersome, weapon. As the Sentinel was not designed for combat situations, retrievers have little to no shielding. Halos have also been observed playing host to a rare type of Sentinel known as Steward Sentinels. The upper section of the Steward is vast and wide with 2 arms. 3 glowing eye-like lights are installed on the front of each Sentinel with 2 claws below it. The lower section is lined with 4 mechanical tentacle-like legs. The threat of the Sentinel defences of Installation 03 were cause for Ivanov Station to keep a permanent complement of broadsword fighters and Mark 2551 Onega defence cannons on hand at all times to ensure the station's defence. The exterior band of Halo installations contains a series of Confidence-class weapon arrays, which can be used to enforce an exclusion zone of up to 1 light year. The UNSC Pillar of Autumn was initially tagged as a hostile by 343 Guilty Spark using Installation 04's Confidence Class defense system, but was given clearance after scans revealed that humans were aboard. The Halos are also capable of projecting area of effect energy shields, containment fields, and repulsor fields. These energy shields can be formed in any location of immediate need to help contain flood outbreaks or otherwise isolate some areas from others. On top of this, physical barriers such as walls, structures, and sarcophagi can be rapidly constructed by the resident sentinels, overseen by the installation's monitor, as a more permanent containment option that won't consume disproportionate energy over time. Due to the ring's modularity in construction, large sections can be selected and ejected into space should the resident monitor or other authorized entity deem it necessary. A complex signal interference and blocking system is also part of the Halo defenses. To avoid accidental discovery and then telegraphing of the Halo's location to others of their species, the Halo can broadcast a signal that blocks all communications incoming or outgoing from the Halo's immediate area. Exactly how this is achieved without in turn creating an obviously artificial blocking signal that could be picked up and triangulated by others is still highly debated. The Halo installations are remarkably resilient. Even after sustaining significant damage, Installation 07, otherwise known as Zeta Halo, has managed to remain largely operational with a hard-light reinforcement structure projected across the missing section of the ring, thereby stabilizing what would otherwise be a position of weakness and poorly distributed shear and torque loading. The replacement of Installation 04, having only been partially assembled at the time of deployment, was still completely structurally sound until the premature firing sequence was initiated, and indeed, even the destroyed Installation 04 had sections that still supported atmosphere, gravity, and even life, as seen on the Alpha Shard. The ultra-advanced compartmentalized technology that in itself is capable of performing its functions completely independent from the rest of the Halo grants the installation an impressive degree of redundancies, as well as the ability to operate without significant oversight. This means that even if critical systems are damaged or destroyed, the installation can remain operational. The Halos do display some weaknesses. Severe unexpected strain or torsion to the structure can cause immense damage. One example of this is with Zeta Halo, when, as a safeguard against capture, it exited slipspace on a collision course with a planet. At the time, Zeta Halo measured 30,000 kilometers in diameter owing to it being part of the senescent array, so it was believed by mendicant bias that the Halo could be orientated so that the planet would pass through the middle of the ring. Despite this, there was still a grave risk that the gravitational pull of the planet would tear the Halo apart. Plates of foundational material were moved over to the exterior walls in preparation for repairs during the passage. Sentinels and other craft were positioned across the Halo, firing their engines in an attempt to alter the installation's course, with little success. The Halo's central hardlight hub and spokes, typically used in the activation process of the main weapon, were activated to slow down the ring's passage over the planet, and to borrow some of the planet's velocity in order to alter the ring's orbit in an effort to prevent collisions in possible future orbital passes. However, the hardlight structures did not last long against the planet's surface, disintegrating shortly after impact. The installation's outer walls quickly exceeded their capacity to manage the strain of the planet's tidal stresses, coming apart at various points. As the walls gave way, the foundational plates began to bend and distort with massive gaps, some of them hundreds of kilometers in diameter, opening between them. In addition to this, the heavy compartmentalization can lead to issues in respect to rapidly resolving issues due to the need for numerous members to simultaneously oversee multiple independent systems' operation, rather than control them all from a single point of contact. Again, this was an issue when trying to navigate Zeta Halo around the planet, and Mendicant, despite being a contender-class AI, and as such one of the most powerful AIs in existence, had to resort to asking for help of ancient humans located on the ring to help coordinate and guide the Halo's passage. The Halo's ability to be accessed and used by humanity could also be considered a possible weakness, as humanity are still heavily entrenched in conflict, both foreign and domestic. As such, were the location of one of the rings to be uncovered and unauthorized personnel managed to make landfall, a human with bad intentions could use the ring to exact chaos, conflict, and death on an unimaginable scale. This is why the locations of all known Halo installations is still heavily classified within the Office of Naval Intelligence. That being said, even ONI have displayed on numerous occasions to be lacking in morality and ethics, if the perceived benefits of their actions can even be partially justified, and failing that, be blamed on someone else should the situation get out of hand. While the UNSC has the official protocol to locate, secure and decommission the Halos, the ring's ability to wipe out all life in a 25,000 light-year diameter is only a small part of the threat the Halos pose to life at large. The Halos are megastructures of unparalleled beauty, mystery, and technological advancement. They are also weapons of untold destructive capability. And given that most Halos harbour some degree of flood presence for the sakes of scientific study by the respective installation's monitors, also pose a significant biological threat to biodiversity across the galaxy. Although the Forerunners opted to preserve examples of the Flood for study to attempt to engineer a cure or inoculation to the Flood infection, it could be argued that it would have been better for the galaxy as a whole to simply eradicate all instances of the Flood along with all other life when the installations were last activated, to spare the galaxy of the threat of future infection. Despite being decommissioned by the UNSC and their untold beauty and unavoidable threat, the Halos will continue to play a pivotal role in the events of the galaxy going forward. In truth, I foresee the distinct possibility of a resurgence in the Flood that may lead to humanity having to activate the rings once again, with the surviving species being stationed on the Ark, Shield worlds, and their respective Halos until the next reseeding process begins. But that is a story for another time. Thanks for watching. Stick your comments down below. I look forward to what you have to say. Thank you so much for joining me in this greatest of journeys and this 100,000 subscriber special. I hope it lived up to your expectations. I want to give a great shout out to my patrons and YouTube members Neek, the Silent Cartographer, Kyle Stevens and Symphonic Storm, my Tier 0 Transcentients, Brian, Sebastian, Red Sea, Darian, Stalk of the Realms, Falcon X003, Alvin, Mr. Fell, Flaming Halo, Starlight, Legions Lost, Josh, the TG7, Cat Herder Cam, Schneidish, Leon, Ignizzle and Alpha Therapy, the Holders of the Mantle, my Glorious Reclaimers, my Loyal Metarchs, and all the other patrons and members who have jumped aboard to support the channel. Much love to you guys, thanks so much for your support. It's keeping things happening and helping the development of the channel and future awesomeness in a big way. If you like Halo lore discussed to insane levels of detail, hit that subscribe button and the little bell icon so you're told the second a new video hits the shelves. Be sure to support us on all major social media channels, including Discord, and if you really love the channel, consider heading over to Patreon and supporting the channel over there, or jumping on as a channel member. It would mean the world to me and would free up more of my time for me to put into this kind of content and other Halo related goodness. Take it easy everyone, and find peace in the domain.